Hi, everyone, and welcome to session number 13 in the EdCollab gathering, using tools to plan writing in K-2 classrooms. We are joined during the session by Cece Dom, Heidi Schultz, and Jamie Utek, who are all together in different classrooms in their same schools because they just had a family event earlier today. And so without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Jamie, and welcome, everyone.
Well, hello. So we're really excited to present today. We are, like Chris said, we're coming off of a color run here at our school. So it was a lot of fun and we rushed in and we're ready to go with this. So we're presenting today on the topic of using tools to plan writing in K-2 classrooms. So we'll kind of go through and introduce ourselves and then get right into it. So Cece is going to start us off.
Hi, I'm Cece Dom. I'm the kindergarten teacher here at Random Lake. This is my 5th year teaching. I have taught 4K, kindergarten, and 2nd grade so far. My topics of interest include readers and writers workshop, student-centered classrooms, and project and research-based learning.
Hi, everybody. It's Heidi here. I am currently in my 16th year of teaching. This is my 9th year here at Random Lake. I have taught 2nd grade, 1st grade, 4K, and I love the younger grades because we get to do things like readers and writers workshop. That's the main topic of my interest, and I also enjoy and use technology in the classroom on a daily basis. And I also do co-teaching as much as I can. On to Jamie.
And I'm Jamie Utek, and I am the reading specialist and literacy coach here in Random Lake. And this is my 10th year of teaching. I've taught 2nd grade, and I've also taught special education. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today about, I really enjoy Readers and Writers Workshop, and co-teaching with Heidi and Cece has been a dream. So we're going to talk about some of the work that we've done with the students. But so we're from Random Lake, Wisconsin. Here we are on the map. And if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of talk about us a little bit. We're a small school district. We're K-12 all in one building, which is really neat. And we have about 830 students. One thing that's really interesting about our school too is that, which is nice for the area, we're one-to-one technology. So our kindergarten through 2nd grade students all have iPads, and our 3rd and up all have laptops. So it's just something very unique to our area, and we're pretty proud that we're able to, provide that for our students. So we're going to get right in. So we want to get to know you a little bit. So I'd like you to use our hashtag, the EdCollab Gathering, number 13, to share your name, position, and experience with using tools in Writers Workshop. So we'll kind of wait a couple minutes for you to share that. Also, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions or thoughts as you're hearing about our story, please tweet with that hashtag as well. So we'll wait a couple minutes and hear where you're from and what your experience is with it. All right. It looks like Chris said he wants to learn some more tips about tech. That's great. So yeah, we'll keep moving on with our tools here. So as we're going along, though, if you have anything you want to share, please share. So we're going to say, I'm going to go into the why. Why do we use tools in K-2 writers workshops? I always, as a teacher, I want to know, why am I doing this and how is it going to help my students? So we'll go into the why. And I always go back to this quote, teach the writer, not the writing. When we plan for our writing in our writers in our workshop, we're really planning on those our students and what their needs are and where they need to be and how we can get them to where they need to be. So the process is pretty simple. On that next slide, you'll see we use those pre-assessments. So we use those, the writing assessments that we use the Lucy Calkins units of study. Then we take those pre-assessments, we analyze the data, and then after analyzing the data, we teach. And you'll kind of see that process as Heidi and Cece are talking in a little bit of how they did that. So why tools? Well, because they engage and lead students towards independence. The goal of a tool is not to be used forever. The goal of a tool is to scaffold writers to where they need to go. And eventually what our hope is that the writer will just be doing that on their own without the use of a tool. So tools are great, but our goal is independence with them. So some of the, my lights went out. Some of the characteristics of a helpful tool or chart, which I found in Jennifer Saravella's book, which I love. We'll keep referring back to that. We use a lot of tools from her book. They're clear and simple. They're low on text. They include pictures, icons, things to grab the writer's attention. They're age appropriate, and they give a clear heading that gives the purpose of the tool. And I think that's important to realize when you are planning a tool for your students, that it is appropriate for them at that time of where they're writing. So we're going to go right into kindergarten and talk about how, I'll let Cece talk about how she's been successful with tools in her classroom.
Hello again. So Jamie was awesome. She came into my room and we just brainstormed some ideas of what my kids needed at the time. We did do a pre-assessment. So you can see that most of my kids ended up on a 2 or lower, 2, 1. Some were 4s. Those were very strong writers from the beginning. So with this pre-assessment, we noticed that they need help with organization in general. They need help with punctuation. They need, across the board, they needed some guidance with mostly everything. I mean, it's kindergarten. So we didn't expect them to rock this by any means. But so we used the rubrics to help us with our teaching, with our guiding of the teaching that we were doing. So we went in and we were thinking, okay, we need something for these kids to use to organize their thoughts. We need a planning sheet of some sort. So we made this ourselves. We figured out what they needed, and it's very clear. So we used the first box as the topic, just the title for them. They had a hard enough time thinking of a topic. So we sat with them. That was the greatest part of her being in my room, was that we were able to sit with each kid and talk with them pretty much daily. We were able to have one-on-one conferences all the time. And I could see this happening even with one teacher, because they will be using these sheets all throughout their writing process. It's easy for them to bring it to you, and you can see exactly where they're at any point, and you can have a conference with them. So this tool came, we used it over and over again. So we brought up the topic part, and then we made our own on a graphic organizer, or on an anchor chart. So on that anchor chart, we modeled for them step by step exactly what we wanted them to do. We did it on that anchor chart. So we went from the topic to the first sentence. We even had to tweak it a little bit. We went from topic sentence. We changed it to first sentence because they didn't fully understand that verbiage. So it's a working document all the time. We tweaked every single part of it. So then we went from there, you can see fact, 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 and we put each box separate. So their thoughts were separated the entire time. They weren't mushing together. They did outstanding with this tool. Then obviously at the bottom, you can see the last sentence. So going to the next slide, you can see our anchor charts. They obviously had hard times with first sentence and last sentence, grasping that idea. So we made some just kind of anchors for them to grab onto. So you can see that this was informational. They chose an animal to write about. and they picked their first sentence that they wanted to write and their last sentence that they wanted to write, and they just filled in the blanks. But this is another great tool to use, and you could use this on anything. If you don't have anchor charts easy to your access, you can use it on your smartboard. You can bring it up on anything, even on Post-it notes. Like, we gave them Post-it notes to write with all the time. So that's another tool. The other tool we used in kindergarten a lot that we use daily is our file folders with mini word walls right on them. There is the alphabet with the color words and everything on one side, and then on the other side there's an actual word wall for them. So if they're too far away from the word wall, or they can't find a word on the word wall that we haven't touched yet, they can look on this mini word wall and find anything they need. So they were always pulling out their resources right out of their seat sacks and using them. We also do sight word cards, which helps them. So those are also in their seat sacks. So then once we had all of those resources and we guided their way through this entire process, we modeled everything we wanted to do, they began writing their final draft. So they did their organizer, they broke apart their thoughts, they really thought about their ideas. Then they started their draft. So you can see that we have packets right next to our organizer there, and they basically took one box and they put it onto a page. So it was very easy for them to copy what they already wrote by themselves for the most part onto their book. So at the end they had an entire book. So we made sure they had a beginning, a middle, and an ending, and that each box had its own page. So it was easier for them to understand where it was going. So many strategies we used throughout the entire process, and it was stretching out words to write them out, using every resource around them possible. They could use their nameplates, they could use their sight word cards like I had mentioned, they could use their mini word walls, they could use their friend. This wasn't a on the spot type of activity where we had them just kind of go with the flow. This was where they could use any tool that was given to them at any point. And because, like Jamie said, these tools aren't meant for them to use all the time, but it is meant to bring it into their mind so that it is there. So when they do have an assessment or anything they have to do without these tools, they can at least visualize it and think, okay, wait, I have to have a topic sentence. I have to have a last sentence. I have to have a beginning, middle, and end. It's ingrained in their brain at this point because we use so many tools with them, and it was at their reach at any point. So we always came back to, does that make sense? You have to make sure your sentence makes sense. In kindergarten, they're just grasping what a sentence is. So a lot of it was hard for them to make sure it made sense. The last part of it was adding details. Once it made sense to them and it was ready to go, they could add their pictures. A lot of kids like to add the pictures right away. We waited till the end because otherwise they were going to get too jammed up in their pictures and not focus on their words. So, but then we even went a step farther and we had them label their pictures. But they weren't done with just their pictures. And then we had them add more descriptive words in there if they needed it. Our last checklist that we used, our last tool, I should say, for this process was our 5-star writing checklist. I have it all over the room. They each have one in their writing folders. This is just a great tool to use. And I just found it off of Teacher Pay Teacher. A lot of people use this. It's asking, does it start with a capital letter? Does it have punctuation? Does it have finger spaces? A lot of our kids jumbled all the words together and it was hard for them to even read it at the end. Have you used sight words, and does it make sense as that final one? And then once they were done with this entire checklist, we got to celebrate. And as you can see, we had a little party, they had a stage, and they got to read all of their books, and they were so proud. So then the last slide is just the results of how those tools help those kids. And you can see the growth. I mean, look at all those 4s. Look at all that blue in there. They grew so much. And this was without the actual organizer at the end, they had to sit there and actually organize their thoughts without the actual tool. So for them to actually visualize it and see it in their brains, it was amazing. They did a really good job, and we were very proud of them. So now it's time for another Twitter chat. Share with us any tools that you have found helpful in the planning stages of writing anywhere from K to 2, and use our hashtag, #TheEdCollabGathering, #13. Thanks.
I saw that Elsa brought up that she uses Seesaw, and I know that that is something that is used both by Heidi, and I think Sissy has used it too. That's a really great tool. Is if you're getting into tech, that is a great tool to use with writing.
Hi, everybody. It's Heidi. I'm going to just present some information on tools that I have used in my classroom and with what Jamie has done co-teaching with me. First of all, we started with pre-assessments, just like kindergarten, and it really is the #1 starting point for you to see exactly where your students are, their strengths, their weaknesses, what goals you need to set for them, for you, and to manage your time. If you're going to be creating groups, you need to plan that out effectively, and seeing this in front of you is a really great way. And if you look quick at the pre-assessment, there were a lot of ones. And I should point out too, this was right away in September, I believe, middle of September. So this was the first real shot that the kids had at writing and writing effectively. So we looked at this and we found that organizing that beginning, middle, and end, and expanding that middle was a really big focus we wanted to work on, along with the conventions of the capital letters, the ending marks, the spelling, things like that. So what we did is we took this assessment, and if you look on the next slide, you'll see we came up with this tool, and it was a planning mat, we called it, and we called it Putting It in Order. And first, Jamie and I did an introduction of a story. We kind of created this group story together, and we used Post-its to help the students organize their first, then next, after that, finally. And if you look on the slide too, you can also see there was a box for each of those Post-its. So just like in kindergarten, these students really separated their thoughts, their ideas, so they could see and visualize the parts that needed to come together. And after we introduced it, we had the students get together and they talk. And we do turn and talk and partner shares all the time in 2nd grade, all the time. Not only do they have those ideas in their head, if they're able to verbally share them, it seems like it's easier for them to do their stop and jots, for them to just relax and write. So we had the students come up with a topic that they wanted to share with, and we kind of narrowed it down for them to give them a couple choices. We gave them a couple tiny topics or little thoughts, we call them, and they did a turn and talk. And after they did their turn and talk and they shared their first, then next, we brought them back to the table and let them stop and jot. And on the next slide, you'll see how successful that stop and jot on this planning mat, it really was. And the students loved just jotting down first, next, then. And not only were they sharing, they shared it with partners, they shared it with Jamie and I, and it was really easy to then, oh, I don't know if this is in order, does this flow great? And the students were just able to quickly move the Post-its. And just little successes like that really kept them wanting to do more and more. This planning mat is just, I can't say enough about this planning mat. The kids loved it. It was a great way to organize their thoughts, for them to visually see the parts of the story. And I know Cece mentioned that eventually these kids won't need this tool, but they'll still be able to visualize the parts that go. I know I sometimes refer this to when students are, working on their math facts, their fluency. They have those flashcards and they practice and they practice and they practice their math facts. And then eventually they don't know it. They don't need it. They don't need those flashcards because they have that down in their mind. And same thing with this mat. It really is great. And in the next part, this is what I used a lot. And we used this, there's little boxes, there's a plus and minus, and it is such a great tool. You put this on a clipboard and you are able to walk around and do quick little formative checks on your students. And sometimes I would write notes in those little boxes to see what I needed to check on because of the pre-assessment. If there were things I wanted to make sure that the students were working on, if they were improving on. Another thing that this little organizer helped me with is after I was doing my little checks, if I noticed that there were maybe 3 or 4 students that were still struggling with those conventions, it was a great way for me then to look at that and pull them for small group conferencing, or I could easily do like a quick one-on-one conference with the students to help them going on with their Post-its, with their Stop and Jots, with the organization on the tool. But I even use this little quick check sheet for math, for reading. I use it a lot. So this is a very versatile tool for teachers, but I use this quite often. So thank you, Jamie, for that one. And then what's really great about the Post-its and that planning mat is it was so easy then to just transfer one Post-it for one piece of sheet, one Post-it, one piece of sheet. And when the students had one idea, they were able to then take that idea, that supporting sentence, and then expand it. And I know it's kind of hard to see in that photo, but it really helped the kids not get their ideas all mixed up or quickly. I know without this tool, the students were, writing the whole story on one piece of paper. And when you have these Post-its, it really helps the kiddos expand their writing and thus helping to help with their organization, to make sure that beginning, middle, and end is clearly there. And I have students sometimes use the planning mat. Sometimes they use the planning mat and Post-its. Sometimes it's just Post-its. It's really great because after we use this, the students can pick and choose what tool is best for them. And that is what I like, that independence, that taking charge. We call it take charge of your learning. What tools are you going to use today? And the kids love that freedom. And I love it because it really helps them accomplish their goals that we set because of the pre-assessment, and because it really helps they're focusing on one detail and then expanding it. And so they are just learning and growing with these tools. And after they do, all their writing, they're able to add their illustrations. And we always talk about in second grade, and I believe I heard this in Lucy's kindergarten, when you're done, you've just begun. And we sing and chant that all the time in my class. And that really goes to the writing, adding, editing, revising. And if you see there's they crossed out some ands, they added quotation marks. They're labeling. We talk about how labels are more than just one words. They really add detail. They give the reader some insight as to what's going on, some added information, and the kids just love it. This is probably one of their favorite parts is when you're done, you've just begun, and how you can, and I always say, make it juicy, make it interesting, and they love doing that. And when they get to this point too, most of my kids actually keep their Post-its and staple it, and they call them their mini books. And then they love to compare. Oh my gosh, I went from this little mini book to this big, thick book, this big, thick chapter book. And just to see their progress from one mini book to their, completed published story is really quite amazing. And like I said, this was only their first quarter writing. And by the end of the year, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And they could see their progress, which, gives them so much more confidence and independence. I think that is a huge point too. Not only does it help them succeed, but that confidence and the skill building is really important with tools and having everything ready right there for them. I know Jamie mentioned that on Twitter, a lot of you are saying seesaw, and I agree. We in second grade use seesaw on a daily basis. The students will type in stories. They will sometimes take a picture of each of their pages and then read it. And then we can share it. And then sometimes we have class celebrations where the students all share their story via Seesaw. Sometimes we print out just the cover with a QR code, and then the students can go around and listen to each other reading their stories via Seesaw. So I do agree. My teammate and I in second grade, we love Seesaw. It is such a diverse it is such a diverse tool, and we use it all the time. So the more you can use it, and the students really love it. I also like it too because I can take it home and listen to their reading at home, and I can look and grade and think of any conferencing groups that I need to put together and plan my teaching out just by listening to them reading and seeing their reading via Seesaw. So I do agree with that. I know we also use some awesome editing tools. And on the next slide, you'll see the blue Post-it there is actually, it's called COPS editing. And each of the students did get a little COPS card that they kept in their writing offices. And COPS is capital letter, the overall, and we called it order or organization, punctuation, and spelling. And we practice going over COPS. We practice and practice and practice. And this is, like I said, is a tool that they keep in their office. So just as a visual, it's a visual reminder to the students. Ooh, I got to do COPS. Ooh, I got to do COPS. And even I've noticed too the other day in math, when the students were explaining their writing, they were actually doing COPS on it there in math. So I was like, oh, little carryover. I was so excited. But COPS is an excellent little tool. It's posted as an anchor chart in my room. The kids have it in their office, and we talk about COPS all the time. One thing in second grade too, when we did that pre-assessment, we noticed that the students were just starting almost all of their sentences with and. And so we did a quick little mini lesson where we wrote a little story with all the sentences starting with and we gave them all and cards. And one side was keep it and one side was cut it. And so as we read the story, we said, should we keep it or should we cut it? And you go over their sentences, you go over their stories. Sometimes they did turn-in talks with each other. Sometimes we did one-on-one conferences with these and cards, and they're like, oh, we got to cut that one. Oh, that doesn't make sense. We got to cut that and those keep it or cut it cards are really great. And that also was a quick little visual that was in their little offices. For some students, we used a writing checklist. And this was what I really loved is Jamie and I, and now even this year, every student's checklist is just a little bit different depending on that pre-assessment that we did, depending on those quick little formative checks, whatever the students really need to work on. Some students had 5 goals, some had 2. I even had a student with just one, get spaces between your words. But it was great because he still felt important because he had a checklist. And these kids, you put it on a clipboard, and if they have something on a clipboard, and they will work on it. And this was also a great visual for them. Ooh, I got to do this. I have to check for this. And we use the checklist, these and cards, the COPS editing as great tools, as visuals. And I use just like a tri-folding cardboard piece as their office, and they just set it up in their workspace. And, and if you say, get out your offices, they think they are just these major authors, and it is so great. It's so great to see. Once things were done, Jamie and I went on to the post assessment. And we couldn't have been happier to see the results. All of the students improved in one area or another, but in almost all areas. There were so many 2s and 3s. We just, like I said, we're beyond grateful for these tools. And not only did we use them in the narrative writing, we continued to use these planning mat in the informational writing and the opinion writing, Post-its, clipboards, the keep it or cut it. And like I said, that COPS, the students were even doing that in math when they had explained their writing. So it really is a versatile tool that they can carry cross-categorical. It's not just writing.
Well, and I want to share too, as the students they improved a lot with their writing in general, but also with their attitudes towards writing. I know in the beginning when we started, they had a really hard time, putting together an idea for writing. And at the end, like towards the end, you'd come in and they'd be like, what do you say? Oh, it's time to clean up. It's time to go to lunch, because it was right before lunch. They'd be like, what? They would be upset that they had to clean up for lunch. So it was interesting how a tool just gave them that support and that, that confidence that I can be a writer. I just need this tool to support me. And then it really pushed them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. Should we look to Twitter again?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you can hashtag the Ed Collab Gathering number 13 about any tools that you've used. How have they worked for you? Share it. We'd love to hear from all of you. I noticed a question on hashtag about, as a mom of a new kindergarten, how can I use some simple tools at home to get my daughter to talk about her day? And I know that when it comes to my son, I just ask, tell me 2 great things that happened. Just tell me 2 great things. And and every day, and then I respond with 2 great things that have happened. Or sometimes you can even say, tell me, what was the last thing that you did? What was the first thing you did? And that helps them, think about organization, the timeline of things as well, and just keeping it very simple, but yet to the point. I know some parents that I talk to I can't get my child to talk about their day. But if you just ask them, how was your day? That's kind of bland. But if you get to the point, tell me 2 things, or what did you do first? Or what was the last thing you did? It really helps them narrow down, which is.
I would also like to add to that. I think with our writing, we used those same charts, topic, and then we said first, next, last, or first, next, then, and then last. And I would think I would love it. Like, I would come home and I would probably want to just write out my day. And even as a kindergartner, I think they would really get into it, of just simple pictures of what they even did first. Like you said, Heidi, first I came in and I ate breakfast. Then I did my morning, you could keep it simple where they just have to draw you a picture of what they did. And they get so detailed with their pictures as a kindergartner at first.
Mm-hmm.
We did that even with our tool at first with those narrative pieces. We said, hey, if you can't figure out words yet, that's fine. We're learning them. Use your pictures then. Show us pictures and we'll help you with the words. And they rocked at that. They just got that confidence, like you guys were saying. They were blossoming at one point. So that was going to be I did respond to that on Twitter. And I just said, just use those simple boxes. They would just love to color you a picture. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for all of your ideas that you shared on Twitter. And now we're going to kind of we're going to wrap this all up here and talk about, how these tools have really affected our students. So as Heidi and Cece shared, the tools did support the students in their independent work as we looked at their on-demand writings. But I just wanted to point this out if those of you who are numbers people who really enjoy seeing the numbers. So if you look at the pre versus post assessment, I just pulled out that organization strand of the rubric, only because that's what those graphic organizers really help the students with. I'd say for the most part was the organization. So when we looked at the kindergarten narrative organization at the beginning of the unit, they had 19% of the students had a 3 or 4 on the rubric. Now, the 3 is what we really aim for. The 4 is like, hooray, so, at the beginning, there were 19% in 3 or 4. At the post assessment, we went up to 60% at a 3 or 4 on the rubric, which was a really great progress there. And then we looked at the informational writing. And again, we went from 69% as a 3 or 4 on the rubric up to 87% as a 3 or 4 on the rubric, which was just wonderful progress. And then when we looked at second grade again, we had 0 students in the 3 or 4. Every student scored a 1 in the area of organization. And then when we post-assessed at the end of the unit, there were 31% of the students on a 3 or 4. And I just want to note too, that only 2 students scored a 1 on that last one. So many of them went from 1s to 2s, which is wonderful progress, because we're thinking, hey, it's the beginning of the year. We still have a whole year after, a whole however many months to really improve on their writing, but hey, we're making progress here. So that was just really a confidence booster for those students to see, man, I'm making a lot of progress in the area of writing. So now we're going to do one more reflection. What is one idea you can take away from our session today that you can use in your classroom this year? Because let's face it, it's the beginning of the year. We got a long way to go for the whole school year. And what's one idea after hearing us today that you could use in your classroom to better support your writers? So we'd love to hear it. So we'll pause for a couple minutes and then share what you have.
I saw someone on Twitter say that they use Postit for organizing their writing. And we actually have used that too for their informational writing, because not only can you expand the quick jots of their writing, you can also add illustrations and photographs from the internet. So that is also a great tool to use. Postit is great. We use that more, like I said, for their informational nonfiction writing, also about like their biographies, things like that, autobiographies that they do of themselves. It's great. That also is a great tool. We love Postit.
And I like how Elsa shared that they modified the learning progressions, because those can get very overwhelming for students. And I was going to add in when Heidi was talking that we did cut up the student checklist, because sometimes they are overwhelming. If you give a student a sheet like that, they're like, well, where do I even begin? So really honing in on certain areas to help them really picture what their writing should look like is so powerful.
Yeah, I just saw Daniel said that he loved the file folders, and those are lifesavers, really. They love them. They use them all the time for anything. Like Heidi said, cross, category, like curricular. It just goes with anything. You can bring it out in reading. You can bring it out in math when they're making math arguments. There are number lines on the other side of it as well, and 10 frames that we have. So it is always being used in every subject. And I can, on this slide, it has our emails. So if you need anything, you can email me and I can get you any of those tools, just like the other ladies on here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think we are pretty much wrapped up here. So we really thank you today for listening to us here on a Saturday morning. Such committed educators out there who really want to do what's best for their students. And that's just wonderful that you're here to learn with us. But if you saw or heard an idea that you really enjoyed and you want to discuss it further with us, if you ever want to connect with one of our classrooms, technology is so wonderful now that you can really do a lot with other people from all over the world. Like, please email us. Our emails are here on this slide. We'd love to hear from you. Like I said, we really love collaborating with others, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So thank you so much for listening to us today. We had a lot of fun with this. So
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And thank the three of you. I was thinking so much about every single thing you were saying that I can take to classrooms that I'm working in. I've been taking copious notes. I have plans to watch this again. I also, at the end of today, there's a school I was just talking about kindergarten and first grade writing with. I'm going to send this link to them and say, look, and connect with these teachers. What I loved is how the work that you're doing doesn't just help kids along, it's really responsive to their needs, and that you're really creating tools and changing tools for them. So thank you for meeting us after your fun run today with your school. And thanks to all of you for joining us during this session. In just about 15 minutes will be our closing session for the day. Mari Kopany, Little Miss Flint, will be in conversation with one of our book ambassadors, Julia Torres. So please head on over to the closing link and you can watch it there. Thanks again to all of you. Thanks to all of you joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.